Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Small Biz Matters, the half-hour program where you work on your business rather than in it. Super excited today because we've actually got a couple of things to celebrate. First of all, Small Biz Matters has been running now for 2 years. Yay! I can't believe it's been 2 years. It's actually quite crazy. And in that time, we've been giving local business lots of advice, lots of support, lots of free giveaways in the form of supporting things like the Hornsby Chamber of Commerce. And, of course, lots of great interviews with our local business people as well as local politicians as well. So I am thrilled to be able to announce that it has been 2 years on the air. I only missed a couple of sessions, one of which I'd like to blame entirely on the Autumn Fair last couple of weeks ago. But we're very proud of our track record here at Small Biz Matters, and we're looking forward to serving you for many more years to come. As lots of my regular listeners would know, we're very excited to announce that we are going to launch the Small Biz Matters website on the first Monday in April. So keep an eye on your inbox for that. If you're a local business, chances are you've made it onto my mailing list. And the purposes behind those weekly newsletters are to give you an exhaustive list of all networking events across the Upper North Shore. So you can make a decision as to whether or not you want to do any networking and find out, of course, what's coming up on the show. The other really exciting part of those newsletters is going to be local and vocal. So it's an opportunity for me to highlight a local business that we should all be proud of. You might be a micro business doing something really funky and interesting and different, or you might be one of our major partners who's been with Hornsby for many years, such as Wrigley's, who actually hires over 200 people down in Asquith and still remains a very important part of the business community. So if you're one of those businesses and you'd like to be highlighted to hundreds of businesses in the local area just to do a bit of a sing-song as to how successful you've been in the past or are hoping to be in the future, get in touch with me via the Triple H Facebook page, or you can go to the Small Biz Matters Facebook page and just shoot me a like, shoot me a quick message, and I'll get you onto that page. Hey guys, it's a chance to have some free advertising, so definitely don't knock that back. So beginning of April, look forward to seeing you in your inbox and hoping that I can serve the business community, continue to serve the business community in that way. Now, today is a very exciting show because I'm going to be giving you snippets of the workshop that I'm presenting this evening in conjunction with Connect for Success, a great little local networking group. We're going to host a 2-hour workshop all about bookkeeping, cash flow, and productivity. In particular, I'm going to highlight quite a few of the GST errors that I see people make commonly. So if it's something that you're about to do in terms of getting registered for GST, or you're worried that you might be making a few too many mistakes yourself, then maybe come along tonight to the Gordon Library at 7 p.m. at Meeting Room 2. The cost is $25. I'll be putting a link onto the Small Biz Matters Facebook page and the Triple H Facebook page if you'd like to come along. There's a try booking link there to come along to the to the presentation. And can I say it's only $25 for 2 hours, which is an absolute bargain, because later in the year we're going to be presenting similar workshops to the business community, and I don't think they're going to be that cheap. We will see, though. So get yourself along. It's a great opportunity, and thanks again to the the Connect for Success girls for highlighting this great program. Now, I'm going to just do a quick check with live traffic, weather and transport just to keep you updated. So let's have a quick chat today about a bit of a teaser on what I'm going to be talking about tonight in the Connect for Success workshop with Small Biz Matters. So we're going to talk about 3 modules. We're going to talk about bookkeeping, cash flow, and GST, and a bit of productivity too. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the tips that I'm going to be giving this evening in regards to basic bookkeeping tips and things we can all make use of regardless of whether or not we are charging GST. So as a bookkeeper, I see a lot of people make errors with their GST, but I actually see quite a few people make errors with their basic bookkeeping as well. So some classic examples of that might be that you are not using your chart of accounts very well. Now, for those of you who are not aware and are still using Excel spreadsheets, a chart of accounts just basically categorises all of your expenditure and sales. So everything coming in gets put in an account and everything going out gets put in an account too. Now, why do you do that? You might ask, what's the point in actually categorising all of that? I see a lot of people when they come to me actually just lumping all of their sales into one singular account. They go, that's what I'm making. I don't care what I'm making, but I'm just making this amount of money. So they're disinterested in whether or not that is a figure because they are selling. Well, let's give you an example. Let's look at our plumber example that we often use on Small Biz Matters. Hi, Bob. How are you? So talking about our plumber example. So the plumber is obviously going to be perhaps making some income from fitting new products into people's homes. There's one part. So there's one income stream. Another income stream is going to be maybe unblocking pipes. Sorry, I don't know much about plumbing here, so I'm just winging it. Unblocking pipes would be a second one. And the third one might be maintenance. Maybe he works in larger organisations and he goes in there and he maintains their plumbing products or something. So 3 streams of revenue already. Now, if he wasn't using his chart of accounts correctly, he might lump all of that revenue into one thing and go, I am earning this amount of money. But in 5 years' time, when he wants to do some marketing, he has absolutely no idea where most of his money is coming from and where he's lagging. Or even better still, year on year, where his income has been increasing and his income has been decreasing, depending on who knows. Well, here's a factor. If these idiots out there, and if you do use them, I'm sorry, you are an idiot. If those idiots out there use those flushable wipes and end up costing themselves a fortune because they've got to get a plumber out there, well, maybe he can look at the introduction of flushable wipes into the marketplace and their use as an increase to his income. But if he doesn't say unblocking drains is one of his income streams, he really has no idea how that has been affected. Now, it seems like a silly example, but in everybody's chart of accounts, you should be able to read where their highs are, where their lows are, where they need to market themselves a little bit more, or where they maybe even need to take on staff to tackle a particular area of their business which is growing exponentially. If you don't analyse those figures from the word go, you've got no tools. It's like having an accounting tool of trade. You don't know where your money's coming in from. And of course, expenses. Now, this is an easy way that people can very easily categorise the money going out the door. Everybody knows that I got to spend money on computers. You got to spend money on postage and couriers maybe. You got to spend money on entertaining clients, insurance, rent, motor vehicle expenditure, overseas or suppliers. So most people are going to have that idea of stuff coming in and I'm going to categorise it according to what it is. That's pretty obvious. The difficulty is if you don't set up that chart of accounts for your expenses in the beginning, you might end up categorising everything differently. So you might go, okay, I've got my mobile phone expenses. I'll put them to mobile phone. Then I've got my internet expenses at home. Oh, I'll pop that into internet at home expenses. Oh, look, and I've got internet at work. So I'll pop internet at work expenses. Oh, and hey, look, I bought a Telstra dongle. So I'm going to call that dongle expenses. Now, all of a sudden, you've got 4 expense codes basically saying you the same thing. How much data are you using for your internet access? So think very carefully about setting up the chart of accounts correctly. And this is actually one of the major bookkeeping flaws I see people make. It doesn't mean that you need to have an expensive piece of accounting software. And let me just say, if you are getting more complex or you're taking on staff, you're really silly not to have a proper, legitimate piece of accounting software. But in the meantime, have a good think about stuff that goes out the door, your expenses, and your income that comes in the door, and start categorising it, even if it means, putting that in an Excel spreadsheet and making it a different colour for each one, just so you can start to see where your money's coming in. The third thing I would say people make errors with their chart of accounts is getting mixed up with costs of sales versus expenses. Now, an expense is an overhead. We all understand what that means. It's stuff you need to pay for to run a business. You can't get away without insurance. You can't get away without office rent unless you're working from home, in which case you've got home office expenses. You can't get away without internet access and probably computers, motor vehicle expenses and a whole bunch of other things. You can't really run a business without those things. Those are your overheads. We get that. Those are expenses. Costs of sales are what you pay for that you then sell on to your customers. Now, if you're clever, you should be putting a markup on those things. You should be bringing something in. So let's take our plumber, for example. He buys a toilet. He puts a markup of 10% on that. Why does he put a markup? Why do we put markups on things? I'll tell you why. Because your time is worth money. Because it took you time to source that product and it took you time to go and get that product. And even if you knew that product was already there and you knew your supplier really well, and even if you got that product delivered, so it didn't really take you any time, the energy and the time that it takes you to research that in the first place, you need to recoup some of that. So that's why it's really important, even if it's just teeny weeny, that you always put a markup on things. It takes time to book stuff on the internet. It takes time to find your good suppliers and build up relationships with them. So recoup some of that time back just by putting a small markup. So if there's anything that's coming in the door that you're on selling to your customers, and with any luck you're putting a markup on, that is a cost of sales. Now, when you sit down with your accountant at the end of the year, and you should be doing that, a good accountant will sit down with you and analyse how your business is going year on year, no matter how small you are. When you sit down with them, you will look at a profit and loss table. Now, a lot of businesses don't really understand how to read this, but just understand that all of the income goes in one section, all of the costs of sales go in another section, and all the expenses go in another again. That is really why it's important to set up your costs of sales right from the beginning so they don't get lumped in with your overheads, your expenses, and you don't get confused. And try and keep your chart of accounts neat and tidy. So try and think a little bit about making sure you're not overdoing it. You don't want hundreds of things in your chart of accounts. A standard one, maybe 20 items. That's it, including those three income categories. And don't have something called other expenses or other income. Do you know why? Because you're going to put everything in there when you get lazy, when you're really tired and it's 12 o'clock at night and you're on a BAS deadline and you can't be bothered coding it in the right way. You're just going to stick it into other expenses. So don't have that one in the first place. That's actually one of the things that I look at when I'm analysing people's, doing a bookkeeping audit for them. Have they chucked everything into other expenses? Well, if they have, they're not using their chart of accounts correctly. Well, I hope you picked up a couple of good little basic bookkeeping tips. That's just a taster of what I'm going to be talking about tonight at the Gordon Library Meeting Room 2 for the productivity, expert bookkeeping, cash flow, organisational hints. It's going to be jam-packed, 2 hours tonight. I hope you can come along. In the meantime, let's check out a word from our sponsors. And welcome back to Small Biz Matters. You're with Alexi Boyd, your presenter of 2 years. Hurrah! Let's get excited. I'm very excited that we've been around for 2 years here at Small Biz Matters, serving the local small business community for Hornsby and Ku-ring-gai. Today, we are talking and highlighting some of the tips and tricks that I'm going to be giving at tonight's Gordon Library workshop, which is going to be great. 2-hour workshop. It's only $25. Like $25 for 2 hours. You're going to get a jam-packed session full of tips and tricks, as I said, some strategies, and you're going to walk away feeling empowered. Empowered when it comes to GST. Empowered when it comes to admin. I know I get excited about admin. You all know that. I'm a bit nuts. So let's talk a little bit more about what we're going to be covering. Just before the break there, I was talking about some typical bookkeeping errors that people make. And today I just want to talk to you, and now I'm going to talk to you about compliance issues around GST. So when do you have to register for GST? So technically you have to register for GST when the ATO tells you do. And that's generally when you're approaching or have just surpassed $75,000 of income. That's outgoings only, not how much money you're making in taxable income, but actually how much you're billing out. If you think you're getting close to that, maybe you want to get on the front foot and actually dictate the date that you want to start charging GST. Now, the reason why that is really sensible, number one, it makes your bookkeeping easy if it's at the beginning of a quarter. So if you turn around and say, okay, I'm sort of getting close to $75,000 for this financial year, I'm tracking really well. You know what? Because I've been analysing my chart of accounts that we talked about before the break. And I've been looking at it really carefully. And I know I'm going to crack the $75,000 this year. So I'm going to nominate with the ATO, and you can do this through your bookkeeper or through your accountant. I'm going to nominate a date when I want to start. And the reason why I want to nominate a date is because from that date forward, I'm going to start adding GST to my invoices for my clients. So there's no mishmash. It's very clear to them. I can send out emails. I can prepare for this. I can let them know that I'm going to start to charge GST because I have to, according to the ATO regulations. And from a certain date onwards, you start popping GST on your invoices. Now, if you're in the position where you suddenly get told by the ATO that you're going to have to start charging GST, usually they pick a date out of thin air. I've seen people come back with dates like the 24th of April. And sometimes you find out after the fact. And that is a big fat headache because you have to go back and reissue those invoices with GST on them. So you have to actually go back and ring your clients and go, oops, sorry, I didn't realise, I wasn't prepared. I didn't realise that the ATO was going to make me start charging GST. I have to now give you another invoice and add GST to it. Now, can you imagine what sort of, impact that's going to have on your client relationship? Not great. First of all, you look a bit disorganised. You look as though you don't really know what's going on with your finances. And maybe they didn't realise in the first place that you don't even charge GST. So you want to make sure that you're on the front foot, and you want to make sure that you're making it clear to your clients what's happening and how it's going to impact on them. The other reason why it's good to have that decision back in your court rather than the ATO dictating it is if your end client are consumers, they don't get to claim back any of the GST. So I'm not talking to those businesses out there who are business to business, who, when they start charging GST to other businesses, it doesn't really matter because those other businesses are just going to claim back the GST. It's no big deal. But if your end client is a consumer, then all of a sudden your prices are about to go up by 10%. And that is actually quite a large impact. So what I need everybody to think about is the fact that you are going to be letting your customers know in advance, and maybe you're being forced into this decision where you have to start charging the GST. Maybe in the first year you absorb that cost. You make it so that your invoices don't really change, your costs don't change, but they are inclusive of GST. So you take on that cost of 10%. And then in the following year, you magically, on the 1st of July, a logical date, put up your prices by 10% so your customers know in advance that that's coming. And then it just sort of looks like you've put your prices up like you should be doing every year if you've got, good control of your finances, etc. So what I'm saying is think about getting on the front foot when it comes to GST and the ATO, when it comes to dictating the date of your start date for GST. And this is really the point in time where you do need to engage with a bookkeeper. So obviously I'm a fan of engaging with bookkeepers. Quick disclosure here, everybody, I am actually a BAS agent bookkeeper. So of course I'm going to promote the idea of having bookkeepers. But the best time to engage with one, if you haven't in the past, is when you first start charging GST, or you first are thinking about doing GST, or you're taking on your first employee, because that's the point when you need to get that accounting system into place. A good chart of accounts, a good payroll system, and really a legitimate system as well. I know there's products out there like Invoice to Go, and I know there's products out there like FreshBooks. Don't touch them. Just don't. Because they make errors. We commonly see them make errors. And you need a product that if you're going to start doing serious stuff with the ATO, like registered BAS, and you've got to start lodging BASs quarterly and you need to start reporting things to them, then you need something that's robust enough and correct and accurate according to the Australian system. A lot of those invoicing programs are available online, but they are actually made overseas, or they're designed for the American market, which doesn't quite understand, well, even we don't understand, but doesn't quite understand our tax system. So that's something for you to consider, definitely, when it comes to GST and getting on the front foot. I'm going to go through a few common GST errors. Now, this is something that you can read anywhere. You can go to the ATO small business section. They'll tell you about common errors. You can go, look, if you Google it, you'll see a whole lot of accounting firms and bookkeeping firms have listed this for their clients because they're really, really common. People just continue to make these mistakes. And the reason why it's really not a good idea to make these mistakes is that maybe you're kind of, waving a red flag in front of the bull. And maybe this is the way that the ATO picks up on people making errors. And they say, well, if you're making these errors, what sort of other errors are you making? Are you actually declaring all of your income? Have you accepted any cash payments? And just on a side note, when it comes to cash payments, your accountant will tell you that it's not a good idea. Everything is traceable these days. And remember that if you take a cash payment for something and you're going to be audited, and then the person from whom you gave or took the cash payment from could potentially be audited, and then all of their associates could be audited. So if for nothing else, the reason why you shouldn't take cash is because of the huge amount of guilt you're going to feel if a lot of business colleagues around you are going to be hit with an ATO audit. So think about that. So common GST errors. Are you making them? Insurance. This is the big one. Now, if you look carefully at a tax invoice that your insurance company has issued you, there are 2 lines, sometimes even 3, but generally there is a line that includes GST, which is your premium, and there is a line that does not include GST, which is your stamp duty. The big rule to remember about GST is there is no tax on a tax. So we don't pay GST on water, we don't pay GST on rego, we don't pay GST on, stamp duty, on land tax, on council tax. So if you can just remember there's no tax on a tax, it will help you code those things correctly. And when I say code, it means that those items need to be GST free. You don't claim back that GST from the government at the quarterly point, and in your books it's not there on an annual basis. But anyway, just make sure with those insurance bits, especially I see it a lot with car insurance, premium, GST inclusive, stamp duty not including GST, and the GST amount of the entire bill should match what they have on their bill. It's also why it's really important to ask from your insurer for a proper tax invoice. And if it doesn't show you what the GST amount is, ring them and ask for it. And especially if you're paying monthly instalments. Quite often I see people paying monthly instalments, but it's not a lovely convenient number like 12. For some bizarre reason, they're only paying 10 instalments. I don't really understand how that works. But it's not like I can take the full amount and divide it by 12. It's not like I can take the GST amount and divide it by 12. So that's really important to get that proper tax invoice that shows you the breakdown, preferably for each instalment, so you're getting that right in your accounting software. Other GST things that I see a lot, other typical mistakes. Super. There's no GST on super. So if you're paying on behalf of your employees or yourself as a director, if you're paying into a super fund, you don't get to claim GST on that because there's no GST on it in the first place. Overseas suppliers, okay? So that is people like PayPal. PayPal, everybody. PayPal fees do not have GST on them. But interestingly, and this is just to confuse the hell out of all of us, Stripe, the new boy on the block, Stripe fees do have GST on them. So go figure. So just like you and I, these big companies may choose to register for GST. Whether or not they're doing that because of legitimacy or because they are registering as an Australian company or whatever, you've really got to find this out. And the best way to find out whether or not somebody should be charging GST is by ABN lookup. So if you receive a tax invoice from a little contractor guy or an overseas supplier, have a look on there to see if it has an ABN number. If it does, go to the ABN lookup website that the ATO has. ABN lookup, very easy to find. And all you do, it's actually a very easy website to use, is you type in their ABN and it will tell you when they were registered from or whether they're not registered for GST. If there's no ABN on the invoice and you can't find an ABN anywhere, and you've typed in their name into the ABN lookup, then chances are they don't have an ABN and they're not an Australian company, and you can put them as GST free. But you have to do that for your overseas suppliers. They don't charge you GST, so you're not allowed to claim it back. Remember that as a business, once you're registered for GST, you are now a tax collector. So yay, put on your black coat, put on your scary glasses, and go around and start beating people up. No, I didn't mean that. You are now a tax collector on behalf of the ATO. You collect the tax that you charge out to your clients and you give it back to them. The good news is you can claim back all the GST. So if you've been paying out a lot of GST, you can claim it back. Which brings me around to why you would choose to be registered for GST. Why do you choose that? We talked about the timing, and you might choose to get registered ahead of time because you know that it's coming up anyway and you want to do it logically and you want to announce it to your clients and do it all properly. But why would you choose to, if you earn less than $75,000 a year and will for a number of years, why would you choose to register for GST? Well, the one advantage is that you get to claim back all the GST on all the stuff you buy legitimately as a business. So when you're buying a whole stack of, okay, I'll give you an example. I'm running a workshop tonight, right? I went to Officeworks. I had to buy pretty folders, pretty pens. I bought some stuff to put on the tables, some food, blah, blah, blah. And I did all that. And now what I've got to do is claim that stuff back. Now I can get back the GST on those things because I am registered for GST. So one advantage is you get to claim back all the GST that you have paid out. The second advantage is you look a bit bigger. Now, if you're a business coach or, okay, I'll give you an example. I had a painter come to my house and he talked about being paid in cash firstly. Big no-no. I said, no, I'd like a tax invoice, please. And when he gave me the tax invoice, I was rather surprised to see that he didn't have GST on it. Now, straight away, that tells me that as a business, he's not earning $75,000. He looks small. He looks little. And for some people who are a bit judgmental, not I, he actually looks a little bit unprofessional. So if you're something like a business coach or you are running business to business and your clients are going to be able to claim the GST back and you are going to be able to claim back the GST on the products that you buy for your business purposes, why wouldn't you register for GST? Particularly since after listening to this program, you've been very inspired and are going to go and get your accounts set up properly with a bookkeeper. So why is it that you would not register for GST, I ask? Yeah, it's a bit more of a hassle. But the other advantage to registering for GST is the fact that you are now reporting quarterly. Reporting quarterly means that you need to keep on top of your books. It means that you need to keep up to date. And it means that you need to tell the ATO what you're doing on a quarterly basis. Don't get all conspiracy theory on me. Don't go, oh, Big Brother's watching me. They know how much I earn. They know anyway, guys. I hate to bother you, but they kind of already know. So make it easier for yourself. Keep on top of your books and actually register for GST because it forces you to report things quarterly. I know the thought of sitting up once a quarter, just before midnight for the BAS deadline and getting things done, it does sound abhorrent. But I think more abhorrent is what the majority of businesses do, which is when they're not registered, walk into their accountant's office with a shoebox full of receipts and just hand it over and just go, there you go, let me pay you $220 an hour to go through my receipt. So think about those things in terms of timing with GST and a whole bunch of other stuff. I'm going to take a quick break because I need to get a drink of water with all this talking about GST. It's getting me overexcited. So we're just going to go to a quick song now. And when we get back, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some productivity tips, some productivity apps, things to make your day work a little bit more smoothly and stop you from doing things over and over again. You are listening to Small Biz Matters on Triple H 100.1 FM. And welcome back to Small Biz Matters. You're here with Alexi. And interesting selection choice. And that wasn't me, by the way. That was all very automated. Total control, which is what I'm hoping everybody is going to gain out of the workshop this evening at the Gordon Library, co-hosted by Small Biz Matters and Connect for Success, which is going to be all about productivity, the GST, bookkeeping. It's just going to be jam-packed. Really, it's an admin fest, which I'm super excited about. So come along tonight. If you need to book, I'm going to pop that up on the Small Biz Matters Facebook page as well as the Triple H Facebook page shortly. You need to book ahead, $25, seriously, for 2 hours, and that's tax deductible, of course. You'll be able to ask questions from me, a BAS agent and registered bookkeeper, director of Boyd Office Management Services, proud supporters of Triple H, and you'll be able to ask me lots of questions and go from there. So back to our program now. We're talking about GST, and I'm going to launch into a little bit about productivity. Now, just to let you know, tonight's workshop is going to be covering this in more detail, but I'm just giving you a little bit of a snippet, a bit of a teaser, if you will, and just give you a couple of tips about being a little bit more productive. Now, the thing is, I think that all of us as businesses are productive in our own right. We wouldn't succeed if we weren't. Now, you might be very productive at getting back to your clients and giving them quotes really super fast, and good quotes too that they want to pick up on. You might have excellent customer service skills, following up on clients, making sure they're happy. But you might be really crappy at your email formats. So a little bit of a tip on that, for example. A really great way to make life easier for yourself is setting templates in your emails. Now, I think all of us can think to ourselves, what email do I write 100 times? Now, you wouldn't type out your signature each and every time. You wouldn't write, kind regards, Alexi Boyd, Director Boyd, Office Management Services, your phone number, your email address and your website, and maybe pop in a logo. You wouldn't do that every time. So why do we do it when we're writing emails for quotes, for example, or an introductory email? So an introductory email where you're going, hey, it was really great to bump into you at that networking meeting the other night. Here's a little bit about my business. If you'd like to get together for a coffee, here are my availabilities. Now, 90% of that is the same every single time you write it. Don't forget to change the name at the top of the email, though. That's fairly important. And the only thing you've got to change is those availability dates for your coffee catch-up. Don't forget to keep your receipt too. So there's one aspect that you can write templates for. Your quoting. If you're still kind of in the dark ages a bit and you're still running quotes out in emails, okay, that's fine. But most of that email quoting, sort of the written format of that text is going to be the same. Thank you very much for the opportunity to send you this quote. As discussed, here is a description of the costings involved with this particular job. If you have any queries, please don't hesitate to give me a call. Why would you type out those 3 sentences every single time you send out a quote? So as a little exercise, a little bit of homework for my small biz listeners out there, why don't you just go home, or if you've got a pen and paper now, just write down 3 things that you know that you've typed out more than 3 times. And if you found one of them, the way you do it is you write a really well-written, well-formatted, check the spelling template, and you put it in your email signatures. So just like your email signature with the kind regards, your name, your phone number and everything else, you write another one that's called quotes, or another one called introductory email, or another one called invoice. And then when you're ready to send those invoices or send that introductory email, you pull that down out of your signatures, email signatures, and blam, 3 sentences already typed out. Big time. Lots of productivity there. So spend the first few minutes, first time you do it, really going over it. Maybe shoot it to a friend who's a copywriter or someone who's really good with words. Make sure that your sentence structure is good. And then you that's it. You never have to write it again. Oh, the joy. So the idea behind productivity is to stop doing the same thing over and over again, particularly if you get it right the first time. Also wanted to cover today a little bit about time wasters. Now, this is really obvious. As my husband said to me last night when I was working at my workshop, he goes, "Why are you talking about time wasting? Everybody knows that." Now, it's kind of like saying everybody knows about the traffic, but we still get in our cars and drive down that road. That's right. Sometimes you need to be reminded of things and find strategies to combat it. So, email is a big time waster. Now, having talked about how important it is to have good emails and written out properly, it is a big time waster because when we get in our office, we've had our coffee or whatever it is, you sit down and the first thing you do is you read all your emails. Do you know what you've just done? You've added about 10 things to your to-do list. So you've walked in with a mental idea of what you need to do for the day and what's really, really important because it's been hanging over you. And then you've just added 10 more things to that. Why not, and really the world's not going to end if you do this, why not leave the emails? Don't open your email program. Don't have it automatically opening. Maybe tackle those things you said were really important, even if it's just in bullet points. Just get them started, or get the thing that was running around in your head while you were asleep out of your head and down on paper. Get that done first. Then, maybe at about 9:30, 10 o'clock, read your emails. Now you've at least tackled those first few things that have been hanging over you for the last few days before you've added more to your to-do list. And speaking of emails, if it's junk mail, delete it. Get in the habit of creating a junk mail list. Get in the habit of hitting the unsubscribe button. Because those milliseconds of looking at something going, no, delete. A couple of extra seconds just to hit the unsubscribe button means you don't have to do that for every week for the next 12 months. The only time you should not be doing that unsubscribe button is when you receive one of our fabulous emails from Small Biz Matters. I'm kidding. But the idea that email takes up a lot of your time is because a lot of people don't use it efficiently. There are people out there, and my husband, I'm talking about you, have thousands and thousands of emails in their inbox because they don't treat their inbox like a to-do list. They treat it just as a pile of mush. And so you lose emails. They go further and further down the list and you lose them. If something's really important and you refuse to delete emails, then highlight it. Right-click, flag. Easy. Right-click. I've got to get back to that. I've got to remember to get back to that. But in the first place, don't let it fall down off the page. Start deleting all the garbage that you don't need anymore. And remember, you don't necessarily in the old days, you used to have to sort of categorize emails very carefully and put them into different categories and folders. You don't have to do that so much anymore because we have great search functions in our email now. So as long as you just bung it into clients, bung it into business development, and bung it into marketing, or bung it into read later, you'll be able to find it because you'll be able to search according to the content and the subject line of the email. So most search engines now are working pretty adaptedly at that. You can also set up your inbox so that anything with a particular set of words or from a particular supplier goes straight into a particular folder. So you don't even see it until you're ready to read it. I'm not a fan of that. That's just me, because I feel as though I'm not keeping a finger on the pulse of everything that's going on. But then having said that, if I go back 5 minutes and talk about email productivity, I probably should have deleted those or not dealt with them at all. If I'm not going to read it now, you're not going to read it. You haven't got time now when you're actually setting time aside to read your emails. Chances are you're not going to read it again. So that's a couple of tips and tricks on keeping hold of your emails. We're going to go to a quick break and listen to some announcements from our lovely sponsors, Snap Waitara. And then we're going to come back and I'm just going to give you a little bit more rundown about what's happening tonight with my fabulous, fabulous Small Biz Matters workshop, and a little bit more about other events that are happening through the week that might interest you and your business. We'll be right back after this. Small Biz Matters on Triple H 100.1 FM. Welcome back to Small Biz Matters. You are with me, Alexi Boyd, and the Small Biz Matters team. Nope, there's no one else here. It's just me. Ha! Funny that. Welcome back to Triple H 100.1 FM. This is the half-hour program where you work on your business rather than in it. Proudly supported by Snap Waitara and Boyd Office Management Services, proud supporters of Triple H. Those of you who have been listening to me rabbit on about the fabulous workshop that I am hosting. I only think it's fabulous because I get very excited about admin. 2 hours for $25, learning all about GST errors and how to avoid them, compliance, productivity, lots of tips and tricks. You've got to walk away with actual strategies that are relevant to your business this evening. It's at 7 p.m. at the Gordon Library, Meeting Room 2. You need to book in advance. You can book on the door, but it's best if you book in advance so we know how many people are coming. And I'm going to put that link for booking tickets on the Small Biz Matters Facebook page, which you are welcome to like, as well as the Triple H 100.1 FM Facebook page. So if you're listening to this and going, how do I get tickets? I'm absolutely desperate. That's where you can jump on and do that. So that is this evening. There's a couple other events I want to let you know about as well. Abbey Practice are hosting their fantastic monthly event, first Tuesday of every month. That will be, well, in 2 Tuesdays' time. It's going to be all about... I've lost it. Where did it go? Here we go. Money Matters for Women. Money Matters for Women. I'm sure if you're a man, you can still go. The idea is talking about super, pensions, saving for your future in a womanly world. These, I shouldn't laugh because these workshops, they're hosted by Abbey Practice, are absolutely fantastic. 2 hours, they're free, you get supplied with a lunch, and it's a lovely way that Abbey Practice gives a little bit back. Of course, every Thursday we have the regular BNI smatterings. There's the BNI Pennant Hills, there's the BNI down at Camaray, and of course the BBG group, an excellent networking group at the Kalara Greengate Hotel. They meet up there. If you'd like to find out more information, just shoot me a message at Small Biz Matters Facebook page and I will answer you that information. Also to let you know about, there is a seminar which the Ku-ring-gai Council are hosting as well. It's actually a bit of a meet the politicians morning. It's where you get the opportunity to talk to local pollies like Paul Fletcher and the councillors to talk about local issues. But it is being hosted, interestingly, at the CSIRO in Lane Cove. And the reason why I find that so interesting is the fact that it's a business forum, but I guess it's got a bit of a sciencey feel. It's going to be all about innovation and the ideas boom. And the opportunity of what support is on offer for small business. So that's hosted by the Ku-ring-gai Council. It is going to be on 31st of March at 36 Bradfield Road, Linfield, 7 a.m. to 9:30. Breakfast will be supplied. And again, it is a free event. So guys, if you're a business out there and you're wanting education and you're wanting to network, there are some really excellent opportunities out there to find out more and more about what's going on in the local area, what's going on nationally, and what you can do in terms of getting more money for your business. So you'd be crazy not to attend events like this. Once again, I'm going to pop that information up on the Small Biz Matters Facebook page. It's going to be a busy day on that page today, I'll tell you what. So like the page and you'll find out more information. Plus, these are the sort of events you're going to be receiving in your weekly newsletter should you sign up for the Small Biz Matters newsletter, which is a weekly thing telling you all about networking, workshops, education, everything that's happening here on the Upper North Shore for small business. So thanks for joining me today on Small Biz Matters. We will be back next Tuesday, of course, 9 a.m. every week, talking all things small business, giving you tips and tricks on how to be more effective in your business, as well as putting it to the politicians and finding out about what's going on in the local area. You've been listening to Alexi Boyd, Small Biz Matters on Triple H 100.1.